Time to give our game predictions here on this Locked On crossover edition of Locked On Syracuse and Locked On SMU. That's Grayson Singleton, the host of Locked On SMU. I'm Jackson Holzer, host of Locked On Syracuse. So, Grayson, I got a stat for you. Ready?
Okay, go for
it. SMU last year was 3-0 coming off a bye, but that's not the best part. 3-0 off a bye, cool. They played some bad teams off a bye, but you ready for this? They outscored their opponents in the first quarter, 48-0. So SMU under Rhett Lashlee, at least last year, they certainly did not sleepwalk after their 3 bye games. So with that being said, Grayson, I throw it over to you. The floor is yours. Now, knowing that information, maybe you already knew it before. What's your prediction for this game?
Well, I didn't know that before, but I appreciate you enlightening me on that one. And I'll tell you what, that stat goes to coaching. Like, that is completely a coaching stat because 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent and you come out of the gate when, especially on offense, when your plays are being scripted. So that means you've got a good offensive game plan, which Rhett Lashlee's an offensive head coach. He's their play caller. Like that is just straight up coaching in that stat. My prediction for this one, this should end up being a 33-17 type of game. SMU is not always going to capitalize every time they get in the red zone. They just don't. There's too much volatility with whether it comes to penalties, whether it comes to Kevin Jennings' accuracy sometimes. I don't think they're going to score touchdowns every time they get into the high red or low red area. But I do think they're going to be able to score points on this Syracuse team. And I think 33 is a good number coming off of a bye. First game in the ACC. That gives you some good vibes leaving Ford Stadium at home. And I think the defense starts to settle in. Obviously, it's a soft landing with a backup quarterback. Obviously, you've got the playmakers to worry about. But I do think that the backup quarterback being involved there is going to be too much for Syracuse to overcome. That combined with the fact that SMU should be able to run the ball at will against the Orange. I'm gonna go 33-17, 33-16.
So you're right on the point spread. The point spread currently is 16.5. You're right there. You're right there.
Which will tell you is that that's a game I am staying away from.
Right. So okay, I got to give my prediction now. I think Syracuse is going to lose, but it's going to be an encouraging loss because I do think it's going to be one of those games where they do get their passing attack going. And I think it's going to give us hope that even though SMU has a poor secondary, it at least shows you that Syracuse's passing attack with a backup quarterback does have a pulse. They can move the football. And if they can avoid shooting themselves in the foot like they did with a couple of fumbles, one of which I think was complete BS. I mean, Jonte Cook was clearly targeted. Fran Brown disagrees, but I don't care that he disagrees. It was targeting. They didn't call it, whatever. I think Syracuse ultimately is going to lose because their defense, once again, will not really be able to get off the field. I have it as 35-24 SMU takes it, and they're going to get off to a hot start as well because that's what they do with Rhett Lashlee after a bye. Grayson, any last thoughts on the game?
Well, I'll tell you what. They got off to a hot start against Baylor. They outplayed Baylor thoroughly through 3 quarters. TCU, that wasn't really the case. But look, if you're Syracuse, I like how you termed it, encouraging. Can we see something that can make us say, oh, maybe Rickie Collins can take steps and we can win games with this dude? And for SMU, this has to be the game your defense settles in. This has to be the game you're getting 2 inside linebackers back, and they should be the healthiest they've been since the beginning of the year. Your secondary has been rearranged again, but can you settle into these spots and not get torched by a backup quarterback? I think that will probably be what we lead off the show with come Monday.
From the SMU perspective on that, if Syracuse, let's say, does get their passing attack going, the one thing that you could say as a sliver of hope, you might not want to hear it, but it's the one thing, a sliver of hope, is that maybe it just took a game with the backup quarterback for Syracuse to get the passing attack going, because we'll see how it unfolds the rest of the season. But then Syracuse has a bye. Let's see how they perform against Pitt after the bye. And if their passing attack is really good in that game, then you see how it is in the following game. And the next thing you know, maybe it wasn't such a big deal that SMU let up a ton of passing yards because the Syracuse passing attack, yeah, it had a hiccup for one game against Duke because that was the first time they were starting the backup quarterback, but they got better as the season was going on, and it started with that Saturday game against SMU.